Back to the NFL draft. So if I set the number at 2.5, Nebraska players drafted, under or over? We know one for sure, and I don't care if it's the second, third, or fourth round, or the second or third round.
I'll go over.
Got to be a day 2 guy in Ty Robinson.
I'll go over.
Okay.
I'm gonna
so
go
Fedoni and Robinson,
yes.
I think, are locks.
Yes.
The wild card is Nair. And maybe, who knows, the mystery man, Tommy Hill. But for the draft again, this will be the 14th straight year that Nebraska has not had a first-round pick. Prince Amukamara is the last to go to the Giants in the first round in the 2011 draft. Imagine, well, nowadays people understand, okay? You could say that. You could say, hey, did you know that in 2010 and 2011, Nebraska had back-to-back first-round guys from Sioux, and they were both off of Bo's defense? And you'd be like, okay. And then as it gets further and further away, you go, oh, okay, things make sense.
Sure.
But how about this, young Matt?
Yes.
Try explaining this to someone that in 1984, Nebraska could have had, off of the 83 team, Nebraska could have had the top 3 picks in the NFL draft. This is, I don't know that this gets enough run. And granted, it's now 41 years ago. Nebraska in 1983 threw 192 passes.
Jeez.
In the 1984 NFL draft, a wide receiver off that team went number 1 overall.
That's crazy.
Irving Fryer.
Yes.
Dean Steinkuhler went number 2. I imagine if Rozier was not going to the USFL, Rozier would have been 3rd because they didn't call it the supplemental draft. What did they call it? Maybe they did call it the supplemental draft. They also had one, and he was drafted in the first round. But if Rozier is not like, I'm going to the USFL, I think Nebraska in 1984, the top 3 picks are all from the same school. But Irving Fryer, as a wide receiver on that team,
that's crazy.
Going number 1 is wild to the Eagles.
I've told
tell your grandkids that back in 1984, Nebraska had the 1st and 2nd overall pick.
That in itself,
great year in general,
is an absolutely incredible accomplishment. I think that if that were to have happened, if they got number 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back, that would have been by far the greatest draft accomplishment of all time. Has there been a time since where there have been 2 players from the same school go back to back
at the first and
second picks? Not recently, not in my time, not when I've been following the draft. So the fact that you even have 1 and 2, but 1, 2, and 3 would have been absolutely ridiculous. Hey, 1984, did the Giants have a running back? Jimmy, Rain Man?
I don't know. I was still crapping my pants that year.
Carl Banks was the 3rd pick overall that year.
But he was pretty good.
It's funny you talk about them having back-to-back first-round picks in 2010 and 2011. Now it's been 14 years since they've had a first-round pick. And it's almost like one of those things where when you have a lack of success for a really long time, there are some certain markers that point out that, hey, it's been a tough time for this program. Obviously, the biggest marker being 8 straight seasons without a bowl appearance. But I think that this is another one where you have gone over a decade without having a top 32 player in college football, that you've gone over close to a decade and a half now without having a guy that people look around and say, hey, he's elite. He's a top dude. He's a superstar. It's one of those things where when you look at that and you realize that you can really think, and it really gets to your head that, man, it's been a while since this program has been at the top, since this program has been competitive.
Of talent and also winning. There's going to be guys that get drafted on Saturday in the NFL draft that they get drafted in the 6th or 7th round because they're on winning programs.
Yeah.
Where maybe it'd be better if they slipped to an undrafted free agent, but you have to win. I mean, NFL teams are attracted in first and foremost talent. If you can play, you can play. They'll find a spot for you, but also winning. So Nebraska had one guy in 17, one guy in 18, and then they broke the string of not having, they didn't have anybody drafted in 19. So 2-2-3-2 since then.
That's not enough.
And then last year's draft was a little bit better.
Now
but it has not been like, okay, so you want to go way back. Even in 2011, you had 7 guys drafted, but I'll go even further back to the glory days. You had a run of 95, you had 7. 96, you had 6. 97, you had 8.
Jeez.
98, you had 6. 99, you had 7. And then it slowed down for a bit. In 2000, you had 3. And then 2001, you had 7 again.
What was the most, didn't LSU have about, in 2019, they had 17 guys drafted?
Them in
18
Georgia
guys drafted?
yeah.
Well, and another thing too, you talk about there are guys who are going to be drafted just because they're coming from winning programs. It's something that Matt Rule has talked about in terms of, hey, we practice hard because some of you who are going to get drafted in day 3 are going to be on NFL rosters because of how you practice, because that it's important to practice. And so they bring NFL scouts in, and NFL scouts watch them practice and understand that, hey, Nebraska football players, they know how to practice. They know how to be physical. This is a dude who maybe if he's not a starter, someone that is going to help us get better in training camp because they practice. And that's one of those things where it's one of those small details that they've implemented in this program in terms of we're going to practice hard, not just because we're going to get better. We're also going to practice hard because it's attractive to scouts. And part of how they're trying to make this program attractive again is getting guys drafted. I mean, it's something that they've talked about a ton.
Oh, so I mentioned 84. I mean, twice in the last 6 years, you've had a program that didn't have anybody drafted. 19 and last year.
And a pretty historical program, too.
I mean, it's not good. It's not good. And I know that we're in the day and
Trey
age.
Palmer the year before in 23,
but he
should have been drafted earlier than the 6th round.
Oh yeah, he fell. I mean, he cascaded. And there was another thing too, though. Yes, we're in the era of NIL. Yes, we're in the era of where players are getting paid right now. But you cannot convince me that none of these guys who play college football don't have dreams and aspirations of going to the league, of being drafted, of going to the NFL. Still, despite the fact that all this money is being thrown around, programs that get guys drafted are going to get the top players, period, end of story. And when you make it an emphasis of your program, it is going to help you. And I like that they made it an emphasis, but the thing is now, they got to start getting guys drafted. They got to start having those results.
So kind of on the heels of that, I like where you're going, is Connor was talking about this, about the Ferris State offensive lineman that committed to Iowa. So Iowa has a pipeline of offensive linemen that are going to the league. So if you're thinking and your aspiration is to go to the league and maybe the money isn't as good as somewhere else,
sure,
but you want to get to the league, Nebraska needs to get, this was a big thing with Scott. And Scott talked about this when he was the head coach here, because look at his last year at Central Florida. He loved being in the green room. He was fully husked being in the green room because he had dudes there.
Yeah.
Okay. He had first round guys, and that's what he wanted to do. And they never got to establish a position where that's what we're known for.
Sure.
Okay. The NFL walks into Lincoln and they're immediately going to walk over to the area that's got our running backs or it's got our offensive linemen.
Yeah.
So they haven't been able to establish a position where year after year after year, they're going to produce NFL guys, because year after year, it seems like that position group has a different coach.
Yeah.
So that's where they have to flip of, okay, you're coming to Nebraska. We're known for tight ends. Iowa's known for tight ends and offensive linemen. And
Ohio State's known for wide receivers.
You go to Georgia, you're known for defensive linemen and linebackers.
Yeah.
Nebraska doesn't have an identity when it comes to sending guys to the NFL. And then it also has this weird identity of guys going to the NFL that have better NFL careers than they ever had at Nebraska, where offensive linemen who didn't play well or consistently at Nebraska go to the NFL, and the next thing you know, you're looking at an 8, 9, 10-year career.
I wonder, though, if you're looking at this roster right now, what would your bet be as to, hey, what is the position that they can establish? And I don't really know what that position right now currently would be that I would put my money on.
Receiver.
But you have two.
If you look at what they could make Dane Key into, and then young wide receivers, I think that would be the one where I would go, okay, that makes the most sense, that they could start churning wide receivers out of here.
One thing I push
Big
back
Ten
on.
Big Ten schools are producing wide receivers.
Well,
that used to be the drawback of, you know what, you can't in a cold weather place. You're not going to produce wide receivers. You got to stick to linemen.
I would say more so, though, your argument would be with Cortez Mills and with Mosey and with Ja'Cory Barney, more so than, and maybe with Hunter too, more so than Key, just because Key was an established wide receiver
but he would be
at Kentucky.
But he's the older guy, so he would be in the next year's draft, not the younger guys.
But I mean, in terms of, hey, Nebraska's known for this, and this is our pipeline, and this is what we're going to develop. Wide receiver, maybe I look at D or linebacker. with having Merritt and having McGahee and having Vincent Shavers, of maybe if those guys come on and end up having really impactful careers, that they could be guys who get drafted, and then maybe linebacker becomes a position or edge rusher becomes a position. But like, I'm looking at the roster now, I don't know if it just doesn't seem like they're trending right now in terms of hey, this is their established position.
I mean, ideally,
I think they need to get one.
Ideally, if you're going to flip it, it starts with the lineman, either O-line or D-line. Like if Nebraska, Nash is just kind of nobody is talking about him. So he might actually work into an undrafted free agent where it's better for him to pick his team with his agent. Ty's definitely going to get drafted. So there's at least one guy. Is there another guy after that? I mean, what do you think of Elijah Judy? You flip it when you're starting to produce NFL linemen. Look at Texas. Texas went forever, kind of like Nebraska, forever without offensive linemen being drafted. They've now started to get more guys drafted off the offensive line, which during Mac Brown's heyday, they were producing all kinds of NFL starting offensive linemen that would come out of the 40 acres and would walk right into an NFL starting lineup.